You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
All trending NHL topics, previews, analysis, in-depth discussions, and live coverage of events like the NHL Draft, trade deadline, and free agency. Here are your hosts, Brandon Caputo and Kyle Kitt.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another installment of the Under Review Hockey Podcast right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, your October 23rd, 2020 edition, your source North American sports coverage by sports fans for sports fans, delivered to you right here in the beautiful Niagara region. Find us on social media for updates, giveaways, and sponsorship promo codes each month by following the podcast on Twitter at Armchair GM Pod, as well as finding us on Instagram and Facebook by searching the Armchair GM Sports Network. You can listen to us on a plethora of different platforms, including Spreaker, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Deezer by searching the Armchair GM Sports Network. Lastly, our beautiful user-friendly website, armchairgmsports.com, for all things regarding our network, which includes podcasts, articles, episodes, and contributors, sponsors. Everything's on there for you guys. Please give us a look on there. Please give us a follow and subscribe. Smash that like button on whatever platform you're listening to us right now, hopefully on YouTube as well. Please like us on there and give us a subscribe. Some great content coming to the YouTube side of it. As always, I'm one of your hosts of the Under Review Hockey Podcast, Cappy. Follow me on Twitter at Capoots13 with a Canadian Z. And I'm always very pleased to be joined on the hockey portion of the network by my co-host and co-owner of the Armchair GM Sports Network. He is just Kyle.
Just Kyle. That's it. Nothing else. It's what I want to be known as, just Kyle. That's it.
That's why you can follow him at just Kyle51 on Twitter, or not. I don't follow him.
You know, I really don't care who follows and don't follow me. You can follow me if you want. You don't have to follow me if you don't want to, because I just tweet a bunch of nonsense each and every single day.
Yeah, you tweet about the Leafs. So that's why I don't follow you.
Sometimes. Some stuff is like generic hockey stuff I find funny. I've tweeted, but there's a lot of funny Leaf stuff out there.
Yes. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Under Review Hockey Podcast. Today we're going to recap what was a busy 2020 NHL free agent frenzy. We did 3 hours of coverage for the round one of the NHL draft, and then a few days later we did a free agent frenzy episode for about 3 hours. So we had a long week that week, and I was basically tired of talking after 6 hours of recording that week. So we're going to recap what kind of happened in free agency. Not a lot happened while we were on the air, obviously. Didn't get to break a lot of things, but Kyle, before we get into free agent frenzy and the kind of recap of that, kind of plug what you're going to be doing on our YouTube channel. I got some good stuff coming. NHL 21 is newly out just a couple weeks ago. So what are you going to be doing on the YouTube side for NHL 21 content?
God, like I am excited to do some NHL GM mode and all that stuff, but right now it's so buggy. And I've been waiting. I tweeted it out, if you guys seen it. Again, if you don't follow me, I don't really care. I'm going to tell you right now anyways. I tweeted out that it's so buggy that I don't want to start the franchise mode series right now, because it wouldn't be fun with all those bugs, because there's some bugs in there that are actually affecting how you would do a franchise mode, especially with like the chemistry, which is a big thing with franchise mode. So I'm waiting for EA to fix that. Then I get underway. I'm going to do, I ran a poll. I'm going to do a Seattle. I guess people just want the Seattle Kraken one again because it was so successful. So going to do another Seattle Kraken one. And then myself and Brandon over here actually have one cooking up soon. It's going to be a really kind of like a rivalry GM mode that, you don't really see in the EA, I guess, YouTube world. So there's going to be 2 franchise modes going up against each other, and it's going to be really cool. So we're still brainstorming that, and it'll be out. Again, once they get these updates out to EA Sports NHL, we'll do that. And then, I'm thinking of doing a Be a Pro series. Still trying to work out how to do that. I know with the footage that a lot of content creators create, it requires a capture card. So I'm probably going to look into getting one of those. just for capturing a lot of the footage easier than the way I do it with my GM mode, because I don't really show in-game footage unless I record it over Twitch, and I don't want to keep doing that for Be Pro. So, yeah, a lot of cool stuff coming to our YouTube channels. Make sure you guys are hitting subscribe, like that pillow in Brandon's background there, because we're in picture now with this podcast. We are available in audio and video podcasts starting forward with a lot of our shows. So especially this one, Under Review Podcast, we're now in video form. As you can see, myself and Brandon are rocking our Armchair GM jackets that we got now.
Exactly. Yep, and the masks too. We got to rep those too.
Can't wear on the air though. You know,
I know. But that'll be a good way to transition. This first segment's brought to you by Custom PPE, Canada's leading face mask provider, best prices and quickest turnaround in Canada, both from right here in the Niagara region. Order today at customppe.ca. And I've actually got one of the masks here still in the package.
Look at that.
See how beautiful that is. Look at how glorious that is, guys. Very high quality, great masks. Check them out. And if you use the code Armchair at checkout, you get 20% off your entire order of your mask order. So whatever you order from there, just use the code Armchair at checkout. You get 20% off. So make sure you're checking them out. Everybody needs masks nowadays. Get your masks, get your custom ones. And who knows, we might be selling some Armchair ones, in the somewhat near future. Maybe stay tuned for that. But in the first segment, Kyle, let's just quickly talk about the news that the NHL released yesterday, that they will be postponing the Winter Classic and the All-Star game for the upcoming season due to what is going on with the pandemic and not knowing when the season's going to start, how long the season's going to be. I think this was a smart move by the NHL to kind of just push those back a year.
Oh no, they're not happening. Darn. Winter Classic, sure. I can sort of have some sympathy for that because, it's cool depending on what kind of matchup they do. I really don't like the Stadium Series. I hate the Stadium. Those are so dumb. Like,
especially when they go into LA and
the middle of California where it's not authentic outdoor experience, where people in the crowd are wearing shorts. That's not a Winter Classic. Winter Classic is you pick somewhere where there's potentially actual elements at play. I like when there's elements at play. That makes for a Winter Classic because the teams and the game have to adjust to those elements. Like, they have to do more shoveling, scrapings, and they got to deal with the sun glare. They got to deal with, the snow, and and the coldness. Like, some of them have like those kind of like skin tight things that go all the way around your head and you can just see your face. You know what I'm talking about? Like when you go like in the Arctic and skiing and like that. Yep. Yeah. So, you know what? With the Winter Classic, sure. I mean, it's not there and it's going to suck, but I'm not hurt over no Winter Classic. And the All-Star game, I literally couldn't care much about. It just seems like the All-Star game year by year has been losing it with fans. You know what I mean? Like I don't think there's as much engagement as there used to be in the past, especially with like the voting. It's not a big thing. Like when the voting comes out, I don't feel the need to have to vote. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care. And then when the All-Star game happens, I tune in and out. It's not like something I watch from beginning to end. Like, I'll watch maybe like the breakaway competition, and now that they've added 3-on-3, it's kind of exciting. But you watch it, and the players are like barely trying. So like, why should I fully watch? I should be barely watching if they're gonna barely try.
Yeah, I mean, you know what you're going to get from an All-Star game in most professional sports. It's going to be most of a shinny game, more like a shinny game. But the Winter Classic, I was looking forward to seeing it in Minnesota, obviously being the quote-unquote state of hockey. Getting it for the first time would have been cool to see, but they'll get it in the following year. It's not like they're just completely missing out on the All-Star game. So they'll get it, or the Winter Classic, excuse me, they'll get it next year. But I think it's a smart move by the NHL kind of putting those two events on the back burner because they need fans to go to those events. So if they can't have fans, what's the point of having a Winter Classic or an All-Star game?
It feels so weird, man. It's been so long since we've had fans in the NHL. Like it's been so freaking long since we had people in the crowd. And I don't know. I don't know if I like the idea of when you're watching football and you see like some stadiums have fans, some stadiums have cutouts. Some stadiums don't have anyone, but the ones that have fans, I don't think I'm a fan of that. Even the World Series right now in LA doesn't really look like a lot of social distancing happening there. I see a lot of footage from like people like together, like they're like not sitting next to each other, but they're so close together where I'm like, hey, you can still spread it this way, and you're not wearing masks. I know you're outside, but you're sitting close and you're not wearing masks.
Or they're just not wearing them properly.
Yeah, oh god, the under nose people or the chin wearers.
Or when you're walking around the concourse, are you being enforced to wear the masks? That's another thing. You know, you can be socially distant, but when you're in the concourse or walking out of the stadium, are the same rules being enforced than when you're at your seat?
I can see the NHL putting a very strict rule of no fans in any stadium. I don't care if you're a team in California, you're one of the teams in Florida, no fans at all. 0. We're going to put those like giant shield things along the seats for the broadcast camera so it doesn't show a lot of empty seats like they did in the bubble. And I think the NHL is going to very much stick to that strict rule. And I mean, it does going to suck, but now they're even talking about the Canadian teams having to stay up here in Canada and do an all-Canadian division, which I said it on my Leafs podcast, I'm all for an all-Canadian division. I think that would be really cool. I think the rivalries that are currently there can be, you can really experience it as a fan at home, even watching, even if you're not there. Like what? Canada. The Leafs and Montreal, obviously, automatic rivalry there. The Leafs and Ottawa, automatic rivalry there. The Leafs and I know I'm using the Leafs as an example here, but Leafs and Vancouver, they've had history of having a rivalry. But the main rivalries with the Habs and Leafs and Senators and Leafs, and even Senators and Habs, instead of just playing them 4 times a year, you're going to be able to play them like 16 times a year in one season. So the rivalry is going to, I think, mean more and be more exciting.
Intensify. Yeah,
intensified if they did an all-Canadian division. And then new rivalries could happen. What if Edmonton starts a rivalry with Ottawa in this all-Canadian division? So I like that. And, you know, the reason NHL's just not trying this out for the hell of it, they're doing this because the Canadian government is still not sure whether to allow Canadian teams in the NHL to travel with the American teams and vice versa coming in and out of the country. So,
yeah, I mean, we saw what happened with the Jays this year in the MLB. They wouldn't allow them to even come here, so they had to play in Buffalo this season. So if the restrictions aren't lifted by the Canadian government, I mean, we could see an all-Canadian division, which, you know, would be interesting, and it'd be good for the Leafs. They don't have to play against the Bruins and you know, lose in those games like they do every year. So
yeah. Right.
I'm sorry. I had to throw that in there.
Or Columbus. Now we can throw Columbus in there since, you know, technically we didn't make the playoffs this year. We lost the qualifying for the playoffs. So that was, yeah.
What's that like?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You ask your team behind you.
Anyways, before we wrap up the first segment, Kyle, what are your thoughts on the preliminary, and again, it's all speculation and preliminary talks about, I believe the GMs are meeting right now over a Zoom call, but at the time of recording this, what do you think of the NHL possibly starting in late January to early February this year? How do you think that might work?
So my first question would be, does that mean is the season going to last past April, or are they going to do a shortened season like a lockout season? Mm-hmm. I don't know if they've talked about whether it's going to be a full season. Like, if it is a full season, they're going to be going into August. Like, we're not going to get playoffs until September, like the how they did just in this bubble. And if they do that, the following year, what are you doing? Unless this is going to be the new norm, they're going to start hockey in January from now on. I wouldn't be opposed to that. I'm just saying. I think I can get more excited for hockey in January than I do in October. You just think about it. You think about what the regular NHL. How are you feeling in January, Brandon? Like, what are you hyped? Are you as hyped for hockey in January as opposed to the beginning of October?
No, because I love the beginning of October because you have the start of football, you have the start of hockey, you have playoffs for Major League Baseball going on. January, you have basically the NFL playoffs and the Super Bowl in late January. But I mean, the NHL, it kind of gets put on the back burner in January, except if you're interested in the Winter Classic or the All-Star game.
And I think, what if you even open the season with a Winter Classic? What if like they pick one matchup, that one opening game matchup, and that's the Winter Classic for the beginning of the season? I think, and that's the first game on television. There's no other games before. That's the very first game on television, or maybe it's the only game for the first night. It's the Winter Classic. I think they have an opportunity here to make the NHL season actually be something cool. I mean, it does kind of suck for the players though, because they're used to that summer break, right? Like the summer off season. Mm-hmm. But teams that don't make the playoffs, I mean, if there's no play, if the playoffs begin in August, you kind of have like that whole month of August if you don't make the playoffs in September and October, November, December, right? You have that long off season, which you think about the dates, the important dates in that off season. There's sort of Christmas, but there's Thanksgiving that they can actually like be with their families if they don't make the playoffs. Like, there's a lot of important dates in between there rather than the summer where there's not really anything. But beginning hockey in January also makes sense because hockey, you associate hockey with winter months, right? Like the main part of the season happens in the winter months. Why not start the season in January where it's just, it's kind of like the middle of winter. Sometimes, depending what the weather's like, the weather can be all over the place. Sometimes we could get like late winters and early winters. But I think beginning hockey in January makes the most sense to me. And you're giving a break. You mentioned it there in October. There's so much going on in October. There's beginning of the NHL, beginning of the NBA kind of, beginning of the NFL season sort of. Like they're kind of like in their first couple of weeks there. And you got the MLB playoffs.
Baseball playoffs, yeah.
So that's a lot, right? As a sports fan, if you're like a sports fan and you're a fan of a lot of sports, that's kind of a lot there. I think it's good to push hockey into January and have it start there. Again, there's not really much going on besides the NFL playoffs at that point. So I think it's kind of easier on the sports fans kind of schedule. But I think in general, hockey, it makes the most sense.
As somebody myself who watches many different sports, I just found myself overwhelmed with all these return to play formats. Like there was way too much going on that like I was just tired of sports by the end of the last couple of months here with everything that happened with the NBA, the MLB, the NHL, and the NFL were all playing at the same time, restarting at the same time type of stuff. And it was overwhelming for somebody that watches many sports and is a diehard in many sports like myself. So I can attest to that, what you're saying. Maybe the NHL takes the route of, delaying that till January and a little bit easier on the eyes and making sure that everybody can watch all the sports that they want to watch, not have to pick and choose between one or the other, which they might have to do in the fall.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree.
But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our first commercial break on the show today, and we're going to come back and discuss what the title of this video is, the free agent frenzy recap, and our thoughts on what teams won or lost when it comes to NHL free agent frenzy in 2020. So stay right here. We'll be right back here on the Under Review Hockey Podcast and right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network.
Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano, serving traditional-style Italian pizzas made with the freshest, top-quality ingredients. Loaded subs and their famous chicken wings. Winners of the Reader's Choice Diamond Award, 4 years running from Niagara this week for Best Pizza and Wings in Niagara Falls. Home of the best tray and wing combo in town for the price and quality. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m., located on the corner of Drummond Road and Dunn Street. Available for call-ahead pickup or delivery at 905-374-4400. Make sure to like them on Facebook and view their website for their menu at carmine'spizzeria.ca. Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano. Way too good. As we all adjust to this new world that we're living in today, masks are now mandatory, and Niagara's own Custom PPE is Canada's leading face mask provider. Visit them online at customppe.ca and choose between several mask options with different colors and sizes. Add your organization, company, or team logo so you make your face masks unique. Available to purchase online 24/7 at customppe.ca and shipped within 1 week. They have the best prices and quickest turnaround in Canada, and no order is too big or too small. Also offering custom floor stickers as well as face and counter shields for your business or workplace. Visit customppe.ca and use the code ARMCHAIR at checkout for 20% off your custom or blank face mask today. Custom PPE, Canada's leading face mask provider. Attention job seekers, if you are currently looking for work in the Niagara region, you owe it to yourself to check out the services provided by the Niagara Employment Help Center, located at 6100 Thoroldstone Road, Niagara Falls, directly across from the Camisos Plaza. Their free services include resume and cover letter writing, community resource and referral information, local labor market information, job search strategies, assistance with clarifying employment training and career goals, employment counseling and job search support, second career information and registration assistance, and all their services are currently provided by appointment only. So give them a call at 905-358-0021 or visit their website at ehc.on.ca, the Niagara Employment Help Center. This Employment Ontario program is funded by the Government of Ontario.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network, the Niagara region's best local source for North American sports podcasting coverage. By sports fans, for sports fans.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the second segment of our Under Review Hockey podcast right here in the Armchair GM Sports Network. Kathy and Kyle back with you here. And this segment is brought to you by Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano, home of the best pizza and wing combos in Niagara Falls, Ontario. Call today, 905-374-4400 and carmine'spizzeria.ca. This month's promo code is Armchair Mushroom. You get 10% off your entire order when you call for call-ahead pickup or delivery. Again, that's Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano. Way too good. Winners of the best pizza and wing combo in Niagara Falls last couple of years. Make sure you're checking them out. Great stuff. And again, Armchair Mushroom, get 10% off your entire order. So who doesn't want some pizza and wings this weekend? Check them out.
I can't
let them know the Armchair GM sent you.
Can't disagree with the wings and pizza, man. Probably one of my favorite wings to order in Niagara Falls right now. So they are number one, and we're not just boosting because they're a sponsor. It's really good.
Exactly. So check them out. And again, tell them the Armchair GM saying you get 10% off that your entire order. So if you're looking for some pizza and wings this weekend, make sure you're checking them out. Again, carmine'spizzeria.ca or 905-374-4400. So Kyle, let's take a look at the free agents and free agent frenzy, kind of how it shook out in the NHL. Were you concerned as we get into this here that maybe free agents would be weary about signing until they figured out what the state of the NHL and just the state of the world was going to look like going into 2021 and not be having a lot of uncertainty? Did you kind of see a lot more free agents maybe holding off on signing right away in the first week?
I knew it was going to be we were heading into a different kind of free agent frenzy. I knew ahead of time that we were going to get a lot of 1 to 2 year bridge deals to 3 year bridge deals that for not a lot of money, and a lot more 1 year than most because of the times we're in. A lot of teams you saw before even free agent frenzy, the cutbacks they did internally with staff. So I kind of knew and you kind of seen that this was coming. We knew that some sort of different kind of free agency was coming to the NHL, and it does suck. There was a couple of big contracts signed. One big contract that signed it kind of was so weird the way they did it, and it upset actually a lot of fans for that team. And I'm talking about the Pietrangelo signing of Vegas and what they had to do to free up cap and trading away some fan favorites. And apparently that it wasn't done legally in some sort of way. I heard after too, Vegas was just clawing at the bit for Pietrangelo. They really, really wanted him. But yeah, again, I knew it was going to be a weird kind of free agency, and as we could see, there was a lot of 1 year deals happened with a lot of players who, in reality, if there was no COVID era, they would have gotten bigger contracts.
And with the hard cap that's going to be happening in the NHL for at least the next year or two, a lot of teams don't want to commit long-term money, right, not knowing, what the next couple of years are going to look like for their salary cap.
Yeah.
And the internal caps, like you mentioned, it was interesting going into free agency. We definitely saw some teams that did not spend. I want to go over the teams that were kind of disappointing, first of all, in free agent frenzy. A couple of teams that did not do a whole lot. And again, we're not going to sit here and say just because you don't do a lot in free agency doesn't mean that you're not going to be a good team. You might already have a good team, or you did a lot of re-signs, or you just didn't have a lot of cap space to do a whole lot. So it's not necessarily a bad thing not spending on free agent frenzy. We've seen a lot of bad contracts handed out, but just for these teams, I think that they needed to do a lot more than they did in as terms of signing and making trades. Again, we do have some free agents that we'll talk about in the last segment that are still available, but as far as teams that just haven't done a whole lot as of yet, you have the New Jersey Devils. They picked up Corey Crawford, an aging goaltender for the Blackhawks. Other than that, they didn't do a whole lot. The Islanders, and you can play my favorite sound clip for them, basically what they did. Oh. Yeah, absolute crickets for the New York Islanders. Did not do much of anything notable that I wrote down. And the Philadelphia Flyers, they brought in Derek Pouliot and Eric Gustafson.
Watch out.
Two depth defensemen there for the Philadelphia Flyers. And lastly, I'll say the Pittsburgh Penguins. What is this team doing, Kyle? I could not tell you what the Pittsburgh Penguins have decided to do, or what Jim Rutherford's plan is for this team. I mean, they made the trade for Kasperi Kapanen, which I'm sure you're excited about because they got the Toronto Maple Leafs got a first round pick for Kasperi Kapanen, who was essentially a third line winger.
We'll have to see what that first round pick turns out to be. We'll see how Amirov ends up. He's really highly touted from the Russians over there, and he's got the same agent as Mikheyev and Barabanov, so there's a link there. So I don't know. The Leafs have like this deep connection with the Russian young kids over there. So,
and I understand the Penguins have some issues with their cap and everything, but they bring back Evan Rodriguez. That was like a pointless sign and trade with the Leafs that never happened. So Erod goes back to Pittsburgh. They bring in Mark Jankowski, Frederick Gauthier, Sam Miletic, and a guy that you and most Leaf fans came to love this last season, the great defenseman known as Cody Ceci.
Yeah, and correction, not Frederick Gauthier, Frederick Gaudreau.
Oh yeah, not Frederick Gauthier.
Not the goat.
I'm thinking of Leaf players now all of a sudden. Frederick Gaudreau from the Nashville Predators. Excuse me, but Cody Ceci leaves the Leafs. Kyle, I can feel the disappointment in your voice already that Ceci has signed with Pittsburgh.
I'm just so hurt. Oh, so hurt.
He was beloved by Leafs Nation.
No, I'm not hurt.
Year.
I am excited. Thank God. What a signing by the Pittsburgh Penguins. I'm telling you right now, Cody Ceci is going to be a top defenseman in the NHL for them. He's going to light it up on D. He's going to be the next Pietrangelo. Cody Ceci, huge signing, and only for $1.25. The next Pietrangelo. Good job, Pittsburgh. No, what am I talking about here? The Pittsburgh Penguins. I don't know what the heck they're doing, man. Rutherford is either smoking that nice green, or he's just blowing this team up from within and just doesn't care what he's doing. Because you look at their signings, and they're very questionable signings. Like Evan Rodriguez, sure, but the one the Kapanen trade could work out if it works out. Again, we're not going to know until they actually give it a try. But he's actually slotted in to play alongside Gensel and Crosby, which could be dangerous if it works out well. If not, I mean, I did like the Tristan Jarry signing. I mean, obviously they're going with Tristan Jarry 100% here. 3 years, 3.5 a year is pretty good for a goaltender who's really come out of his shell and is shown that he is a true starting goalie. Not sure what that means for Murray though, because if my understanding,
he was traded to Ottawa.
Okay, that's right. Sorry.
Sign and trade with Ottawa, and then the trade of Patrick Hornqvist to Florida. Hornqvist obviously was not too pleased about that, given the fact that he kind of found out about it, or was kind of caught out of left field by that trade. So I don't really understand that trade from Pittsburgh's perspective. Just Colton Sevier.
The only signings I like are Jared McCann, Tristan Jarry, and the trade for Kasperi Kapanen. Other than that, everything else is like very minor. And if I was a Pittsburgh fan, I'd be like, "What are you doing?"
They basically were on a treadmill. They did a lot, but they didn't go anywhere. Like, I don't know where these signings are gonna go for them. I mean, obviously they got to fill out their AHL squad, or who knows if there's gonna be an AHL, might be a taxi squad this upcoming season. But regardless of that, I feel like they just made a lot of signings that just aren't gonna be very impactful for this team moving forward. I don't really see a whole lot of good going on here for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And as for the other teams I mentioned, Pittsburgh, New Jersey, and the Islanders, just all teams there in that metropolitan division that I don't know, just to me, just were underwhelming in free agency, very much so.
You know what one thing could be, too? I think a lot of teams went out and just picked up random players and random good players that probably even wouldn't fit in their lineup because of what's coming up this season. If you guys forget, this season is the Seattle Kraken expansion draft season. A lot of teams could be loading up on players that, you know, they'll sign for 1 year or 2 years, but won't necessarily be protected when it comes time for the expansion draft. So maybe that's why. Maybe they're enticing Seattle by like, okay, look, we have this player. Take this player that we only took for a year. You know what I mean? So
offering them draft picks like Vegas did.
Yeah, there could be some strategy going on with that.
Yeah, so we'll have to see if that, I mean, that definitely, I'm sure, played into the factor of a lot of these teams maybe not going out and signing big time players, because then they would have to, protect another player on their roster and then expose another player on their roster in doing that. So
Right.
that might be something to keep in mind. But other than the teams I mentioned, Kyle, were there any teams that kind of underwhelmed you that kind of you felt like could have done a little bit more?
I think the Winnipeg Jets, I think they gotta kind of figure out what they want to do. I think they're, especially with the big question of are they trading Patrick Laine? That was the one question that was happening throughout before the draft, at the draft, and after the draft during free agent frenzy. Like, there's all this talk that Laine wants out. There's both him, his agent, and the team has agreed to, we're going to trade you to what, a best fit for both sides. And you've really heard nothing to it from the Winnipeg Jets. And if you're trading a guy like Laine, you have the potential to get stuff back that could help your team, because Winnipeg is one of those teams that are on the cusp of being a Stanley Cup final contender with the goalie that they have and the guys like Connor, Ehlers, Scheifele,
Wheeler.
And just like their defense as well, like coming out, like everyone's coming out, they're showing the signings that they did. Like Dylan DeMello is a solid pickup for them, like a 4-year contract at $3 million per. I thought Dylan DeMello is a great signing for them. I think he fits in well with their bottom six D pair. So he's a guy that can slide into your last D pair and can fit really nicely. They got Nathan Beaulieu re-signed. They got Spezia re-signed. Nate Thompson signed. Laurent Brossoit signed in the goalie.
Derek
tandem.
Forbort.
Yeah, so I mean,
but
they definitely boosted up on defense, but I think
they needed to do more.
They needed to do more, especially if you got a guy like Laine requesting a trade and the haul you can get back for a guy like Laine. I think you needed to do more. Unless we're still patiently waiting. I know it's tough now, and a lot of teams are looking at their cap, and maybe that's affecting their trade options. But you got to do something now, because you can't start if you can't start the season with a guy like Laine who wants out of Winnipeg, so you're not going to get any production out of him, and you're just wanting a mess to happen. Like you got to get rid of him.
And they've got to figure out, they got to get some top end talent on the defense. Like they've got a lot of 4 to 6 guys, but I mean, when you don't bring back Dustin Byfuglien, we obviously know what happened with him. You got Morrissey, like Neil Pionk had a good year for them last year coming up over from the Rangers, but we don't know what's going on with their prospect D. And even then, I mean, they still are lacking in it with like a top pair defenseman. So
that's where that trade comes in. That trade for Laine, they're not getting forwards back. They don't need forward help. They're fine up front. Mm-hmm. Their top 6 is solidified. They're good to go. It's their bottom. It's the D, the back end. It's kind of like the same situation as the Leafs were in. Like, right, the Leafs top 6 is fine. Their biggest help is D. They kind of solved that a little bit with this year's free agency, but they're almost in the same position where if they have a guy, especially like Laine, wanting out, the haul to get back for him to help you on D could be significant. So I think I'm very disappointed that they haven't made a move yet.
Maybe the team hasn't, come yet knocking on their door with the defenseman that they want yet, or the offer just isn't what they want yet, because you don't just give away a guy like Patrick Laine. You got to get back a significant amount. And if they're not getting that top pair defenseman, I don't think they trade him right away until somebody comes in, figures that out for them, because their number one need, I think, is a top pair defenseman. And they could get that for Patrick Laine given the right team. But right now, who's willing to make that move? We obviously, no team is willing to do that so far.
They better figure it out soon, because they're heading into a mess if they plan on starting a season with a guy like that, with his history of his attitude. To start a season not wanting to be there. It's going to be interesting to see, especially the locker room morale might not be great as well. Like you talk about that. That's a big thing too with teams. So I don't know. I think Winnipeg did okay, like boosting up their defensive depth, but obviously the big need is for a top end defenseman, and the trading of Patrick Laine, that's got to be figured out soon. Like you can't go into training camp like that.
Mm-hmm. And let's go with the flip side of the coin, Kyle, and let's talk about the teams that we liked in free agent frenzy. And this part of the segment is brought to you by J&L Flooring, a Niagara-based specialty flooring and design company. Simplified processes and making homes beautiful are their specialties. Give them a call at 905-358-3299 or JNL Flooring to start today. JNOFlooring.com to start today. Jack's a big Buffalo Sabres fan, so let's give a shout out to him. And I'm going to give my first thumbs up to the Buffalo Sabres, surprisingly.
Shocker.
And that is completely unbiased. I'm trying to put my bias aside here, but when you get a guy like Taylor Hall, how can you not sit here and say the Buffalo Sabres were not one of the teams that won in free agency? The 1 year, $8 million deal for Taylor Hall, coming in and trying to change the perception of Buffalo, trying to, show that free agents do want to go there and do want to play with guys like Jack Eichel. You finally get Jack Eichel, a winger that might keep him in Buffalo and not have him request a trade in a year when he's tired of missing the playoffs his entire career. So I think pairing Taylor Hall with Jack Eichel, having Taylor Hall reunite with Ralph Kruger like he did in the one cup of coffee that he had with him in the shortened season with the Edmonton Oilers way back when, now it seems like. And I think it's just a great signing all around. Taylor Hall, he obviously had multi-year deals on the table, but the 1 year, $8 million is the way that he wanted to go. And hopefully this turns into a long-term contract with Taylor Hall after he has a successful season, hopefully upcoming with Jack Eichel, which could be one of the best dynamic pairs in all of the NHL this upcoming season.
Now I want to underline that one word you just said, and that's hopefully, because this conversation sounds very familiar, and it sounds the same from the time Jeff Skinner came into Buffalo.
Well, Jeff Skinner had a good season,
but I think your expectations for Hall are a little bit higher than him, isn't it?
No, I mean, the guy is 2 years removed from a Hart Trophy with New Jersey, not having.
But I'm saying your expectations are him to go alongside Jack Eichel and be that winger. Wasn't that the same expectations that you had for Jeff Skinner when he came into Buffalo?
Yeah, but
he was
obviously
supposed to be that guy.
But Ralph Kruger didn't have that same philosophy, and now Jeff Skinner looks like he's going to be slotted on the second line with Eric Stahl, who they also acquired in the offseason. So to me, the top six of the Sabres looks night and day compared to what it did last year. And I got to commend first-year general manager Kevin Adams for at least trying to go out and make some moves, getting a guy like Eric Stahl as a placeholder second-line center as Dylan Cousins develops, and getting a top-line winger like Taylor Hall to play with Jack Eichel and slot Victor Olofsson back down to that second line, or Jeff Skinner to that second line. I think the Sabres top six looks a lot better, and a lot of teams were giving Hall flack for signing with the Sabres, but I think it was a smart move on his part. He saw the potential that could be there and what could come after having a great season with the Sabres and possibly trying to get a long-term extension next year when things might be a little bit more clear with the COVID era.
Yeah. You know what? I hope it works out for you. I really do, because I said the same thing when you guys acquired Skinner. I hope that he does pan out for you, but I know it's tough with a 1 year contract, obviously with the times that we are in, that it probably could have looked like a longer term depending on what was going on with the contract talks. But I hope that, in a year, that if it does work out, you guys are able to lock him in for good, and then hopefully he gains that chemistry. It's like when I talk about my Leafs, I hope that they find someone that works alongside like a Matthews and Tavares. I know they've swapped a lot with Marner and Nylander, but it kind of feels like they've found that gel with now Matthews and Marner together. And Nylander started to work well with Tavares, and they're just trying to find that other side of the wing. And obviously they have Hyman. We don't know what's going on with him after this year. He'll be in need of a contract. Hopefully he can stay on a team-friendly deal. But I will commend, you won't commend your Sabres. I will commend my Leafs for doing a very good job at addressing needs on the team and filling those needs with the signings they did.
Bunch of sloppy seconds from the Sabres and Sharks.
You know what? I could have sat here and just ripped apart Taylor Hall, but I didn't. So you want to just, tone it down there, Mr. Saber. Okay? So the Leafs obviously addressed a need. The needs were back end, and obviously they needed some toughness added in with the skill that they had. They were a full skill team. Originally, Dubas's his direction with this team was speed, fast, in your face. We're gonna beat you with speed and skill. Clearly, we're going in a different direction now with these recent signings. I think the Leafs have become a lot slower. Obviously, with Janssen and Kapanen gone, two of the fastest guys that were on our team, this team is going in a different direction. You look at what they've done. They basically improved their bottom six, and they improved some D holes. The bottom six with Wayne Simmons, obviously Wayne Simmons, awesome. The way he came out in his press interview after signing, the stuff that he said, I was like, okay, like, I'm going to go out there and punch a guy in the face for the boys. Like, if I have to, I will step in, and that's exactly what we need in this team. And a guy that's not necessarily just there to do that, but can put up production. He's still averaging 15 to 20 goals a season, depending on who he plays with. He has the potential to. I have him. I said on my Last Life podcast, I wouldn't put him in the bottom 6. I stick him on that second line with Tavares and Nylander. You got a guy that can definitely go out there and protect your captain of your damn team, who every time, and I mentioned on the Leafs podcast, every time I watched Tavares this season, he was doing the work that a Hyman or Wayne Simmons would do in the corners. He was a guy going into the corners, battling, getting pushed around and skipped around. Like, why is he doing that? He's our captain. He should be out there like looking and setting up in the slot and waiting for something, or setting up Nylander, because Nylander is relentless when he actually shoots for a change. So I slotted in Simmons on that line. He should be the Zach Hyman type player for that line, and stop Tavares from getting into those corners. For Christ's sakes, I can't watch that anymore. It gives me like anxiety watching Tavares go into the corners every time. But
or a guy that can go to the front of the net and actually want to go there, putting in pucks and screening goalies, which the Leafs have had issues with in the past as well.
And I like the other signings. We obviously heavied up on veteran leadership. I'm not like one of the people who are opposed to veteran leadership. A lot of people were like, "Oh, these are signing all these old players. Not going to win a Stanley Cup. All these old players." I'm like, you don't know what. They think that the Leafs were signing those players to play in the top 6. They're not playing in the top 6. We signed them for the bottom 6 and to be veteran leaders in that locker room. You got a bunch of young 20-year-old kids in that locker room. You could use a couple of guys who've been around the block and back to teach these kids the way and be that veteran leader. So you got guys like Spezza signed, Joe Thornton signed. These two guys are going to be, and Wayne Simmons too, I can include him. These are your veterans on team, and you can include Tavares, I guess, as well. He's been around the block and back too. These are your veterans of your team. You need veteran leadership on a team, especially when you're a team full of rookies. I think that's very, very important in building for the future. So I loved all the signings. There were obviously like minor signings like Travis Boyd, which literally was like, okay, I think that's just like depth in case of injuries. Jimmy Vesey again. Vesey, I can't see. If he starts, he'll be on the 4th line. If not, he's going to be the taxi squad, the rumored taxi squad group. I can't see him starting opening day, especially when you have a guy like Barabanov coming from the KHL next year, who is playing on this team. So, and then they just got Mikheyev re-signed. So it is what it is. And defense on the back end, they went and got TJ Brody locked in for 4 years of $5 million per. I mean, yeah, you're taking a chance there. He's going to be up to 34, 35 by the time that contract's done. $5 million a year is not necessarily great. It's okay. But I think I said it on the Leafs podcast. I thought he was a definite good signing because Morgan Rielly has not had any good people to play against. The only, and I can't believe I'm saying this, out of the entire career Morgan Rielly has been with the Leafs, he's had Ron Hainsey be his best partner out of all those years, out of everyone he's been paired with. So I'm glad that they got a guy like TJ Brody who's slotted to play along Morgan Rielly and could play. He plays the style of a Ron Hainsey, but with younger age, obviously.
And he can actually put up some points.
Yeah. So you got those two as your first two. Then you got Muzzin and either a Hall or Bogosian or even Lettinen, because Mikko Lettinen is lighting up the KHL and has been the KHL's best defenseman this season. So if he can come over and translate his game from European ice to North American ice, he'd be in your top 4. And other than that, I can't. Again, if the bottom pair is going to look interesting, I think they still have to wait for Travis Dermott to sign and what happens with him in arbitration. If not, they have Rasmus Sandin, Bogosian, and all the rest. But yeah, I think the Leafs did an okay and did a good job at addressing some needs. Maybe not the flashiest of signings, but the signings that will mean longer in the long run.
So they replaced Barry and Clifford with Simmons and Brody. Do you like that?
Yeah. I mean, Kyle Clifford I kind of wanted back, but he wanted way too much. Like, he wanted a lot of money, and especially with a cap-tight team, I think that was going to be tough to give him what he wanted. So, it's okay. We got Simmons in there to be like that tough guy, and the way again, Simmons' first interview about signing with the Leafs was the best. It was great. But let me stop talking about the Leafs now. Been too long talking about that. I think I did like a couple of the signings that the Sens did. Not gonna lie, Evgeny Dadonov was a smart contract to do. he's really shown that the last 2 years with the Florida Panthers that he could fit into a top 6 on any team and produce playing with the right players. And Matt Murray, I mean, 4 years at 6.25 is okay.
That's what you have to overpay to get players to stay in Ottawa. That's the that's the opposite of a hometown discount. That's the, you want me to play in Ottawa, this is what you're going to pay me.
Yeah, and they have the thing is that they have the cap space, so like it doesn't really affect them too much. But no. I think now that they have a pretty established goaltender, when Murray plays good and he is on his game, he is a good goalie. So if he can stay out of injury trouble, I think Ottawa's got a pretty solid tendy right there. They got a pretty solid guy to work with their top 6 with Evgeny Dadonov. And, you know, I mean, they got their 2 top 5 picks coming in next year, potentially playing right away, potentially not, depending on what it's going to look like next year with in terms of junior hockey and AHL. I know I didn't mind Ottawa's signings there. I thought they did a pretty decent job.
Mm-hmm. I like Dadonov, the signing for them, but other teams that I thought did a decent job, Detroit, I mean, they did a lot. They signed 7 guys, which included Bobby Ryan, who I think is a great low risk, high reward signing. We saw his revitalization in Ottawa last year, so I think he's going to be motivated. John Merrill, Thomas Greiss, and net, Troy Stetcher, and Vlad Nemesnikov. So they bring in like 5 solid NHL guys there that obviously for a rebuilding team like Detroit, and they bought out a lot of guys and we're trying to, transition to a new phase. They brought in guys that are NHLers and know how to get it done. So they, I think they've done a good job of, improving on the depth that obviously was not there for the Red Wings last year. We saw him have one of the worst seasons in NHL history last year. So I think they did a good job of bringing in a lot of depth and, trying to build themselves back up here. I did like what Edmonton did with their 2 major moves. They brought in Tyson Barrie from the Leafs, who obviously didn't work out with the Leafs, but we saw what he did in Colorado, and Edmonton desperately needing top 4 defensemen. I think Tyson Barrie going there on a 1-year deal, kind of like a Kevin Shattenkirk type deal last year with Tampa Bay, revitalizing himself. I think Tyson Barrie could have a great season with the Edmonton Oilers, and bring in Kyle Turris, who was bought out by the Nashville Predators. I think he fits in nicely as a number 2 or 3 center there for Edmonton, and we'll have something to prove after the last couple of years in Nashville haven't done well. So I did like what the Oilers did as well with Turris and Barrie.
They're one problem away though. They still have the same problem, and that's the net. And they already got. They just like I don't know how they do. They think Mike Smith is the answer to their goalie problems, man. Like they re-signed Mike Smith to a 1-year, $2 million contract. A 1-year, $2 million contract means you're playing at least 40 games for them. He's not the answer. I thought they would go out there and maybe do some sign-in trades or at least make an attempt at one of the goalies that were available. Like, oh my God, man. They can't. Their goalie tandem is not good. That's not going to win them a playoff series. That's not going to do anything for them.
Yeah, we'll see what they do in net, and maybe they make a trade for a goalie. Maybe they acquire Marc-Andre Fleury after Vegas, after they're done with this smoke that they're keeping both these goalies making $14 million. I don't know how that's going to work, but the other Alberta team, I think, did a good job of getting a goaltender here. Jacob Markstrom goes from Vancouver to Calgary, so another Canadian rivalry there. So we're going to see Markstrom in a Calgary jersey. They brought in Louis Domingue as well, so they got a brand new look back there with their goaltending situation. They got Markstrom and Domingue, and they bring in another player from their rival Vancouver Canucks. They bring in Chris Tanev, who I think fits in very nicely as a Calgary Flame type defenseman, a very solid defensive defenseman, and a guy that can bang and be truculent, as the Calgary Flames always love to be. So they bring in Markstrom and Tanev from Vancouver.
Truculent, yeah.
I don't know if you want to say anything about Calgary with that, but
it's they did a good job addressing their goalie need. That was the one thing. I mean, Big Save Dave, he has his moments, but I think Markstrom is obviously a little bit more established. He's shown that in the last couple of years with Vancouver that he is a elite goalie in the NHL when he's on his game, and he showed that with Vancouver, especially in the playoffs. He did have a good playoff, and obviously Vancouver is building up for the future with what's his name, Thatcher Demko. So, I mean, I hope he's there for 2 years, but I think that's just insurance for Vancouver, who's literally on the cusp of going farther in the playoffs. You have a guy like Braden Holtby who will be that goalie for you as Demko develops, and he can also be a guy that can help Demko develop as well. So Holtby and Demko tandem to me is unreal, and Vancouver is going to be a scary team next year. I'm just telling you right now.
They picked up Nate Schmidt too for basically free from Vegas because they had to dump somebody. So good on Vancouver. They're continuing to rise up the Western Conference. I agree with you there. A couple other teams I just want to quickly mention here. The St. Louis Blues, I think obviously they were losing Pietrangelo, didn't want to pay him the money that Vegas paid him. But I think getting Torrey Krug at a much cheaper cap hit than most of us had expected, I think was a good move. They bring in Kyle Clifford from the Leafs, who I guess they were willing to bring in a guy like him after they lost Patrick Maroon last year, which ended up being a big time loss for them, surprisingly. And they still got to re-sign Vince Dunn, which I think they really need to get that done because he's the youngest guy in their decor by about 5 years. Their decor is, really getting up there in age, and he's 23 years old. He really needs to get re-signed there. I know they have some cap issues, but they got to find a way to keep Vince Dunn on the team long term. So I like what St. Louis did. And lastly, I'm going to say I like what the Colorado Avalanche did. They made one trade to getting Brandon Saad for Nikita Zadorov, which I don't understand how Chicago was able to make that trade with
poor Saad, man. He's left Chicago twice now. Watch the middle of this season at the trade deadline. He goes back to Chicago.
No, because Colorado's not that dumb.
And they're in trouble, man. The team hates the team. There's been reports that like Kane and Taves are mad at Blackhawks management for what they've been doing this offseason. They are not impressed.
Yeah, well, they tried to get tougher with Zadora, but giving him Brandon Saad straight up for Zadora. People don't realize Saad's still, I believe, 28 years old, 29. So he's not an old player. He's still got some time left, and I think he's going to fit very well with Colorado. And they did some great re-signs as well. They brought back Burakovsky, Nichushkin, Jost, and Graves. So they get 4 guys who were key contributors for them last year re-signed. So Colorado didn't really lose a whole lot. They lost Nemesnikov, and they bring in Brandon Saad and lose Nikita Zadorov, which unless you're really high on defensive defensemen, he really that doesn't really matter. Brandon Saad I think is going to play very well and possibly in that top 6 for Colorado, which has depth from lines 1 to 4 that can go up and down the lineup. So they're going to be another scary team to watch. And as for Chicago, I don't know where that puts them and what kind of situation they're doing.
Didn't they trade for Devin Taves too? I think they got Devin Taves, who actually showed last year with the Islanders that he could actually be a solid defenseman up and down your lineup. So I'm almost certain that Devin Taves is there. So you have they have a pretty solid back end, like with Samuel Girard, Cale Makar, Devin Taves now, Ryan Graves, Ian Cole, and Eric Johnson to be there as well to solidify your D. They're looking good.
And don't forget about Bowen Byram coming up the ranks as well. It's going to be a scary team for years to come. But wrapping up this segment, Kyle, what were the teams that just quickly that you liked from free agency? I mentioned Edmonton with the couple moves they made, St. Louis, Calgary, Colorado, Buffalo, and I'll throw Toronto in there too. Sure.
Yeah. I really like Detroit. Detroit signings with the way they're rebuilding. I thought this was a pretty good work with the rebuilding structure. I really like the signings that Vancouver did with the Braden Holtby one was solid. I think that's I know you had Markstrom, but Braden Holtby, who has the playoff caliber and the playoff experience to help on in your net, I think that was a very smart signing, especially if you have a guy like Demko on the rise as well. I thought Vancouver was good. I'll include my Leafs. I thought they did a pretty good job. I'll give props to your Sabres. I think they did that was a solid left field kind of signing, taking Taylor Hall for 1 year, and that's a low risk, high reward as well, even for 1 year. If he works out with Jack, then that's a gold mine for you guys. And other than that, I mean, I'm looking at the other teams now, and I mean, Carolina made a lot of small moves. They didn't really make anything big. They got Bracco, who the Leafs didn't re-sign. I mean, Bracco could end up being good or bad. It's really a risk you're taking there. But I don't know. I think I really, really liked the Detroit Red Wings out of a lot of teams out there. I think they did a very good job with rebuilding their team.
Yeah, and Vegas, I mean, I like them getting Pietrangelo, but with their cap situation, I don't know what the deal is with that. I don't like the term of the deal as well. I mean, 7 years for a guy that's already 30, and they tried to trade away Nate Schmidt and Paul Stastny, and just like Chicago, a lot of Vegas players were upset with the way that that was handled. So we'll have to see how that works. Craig Smith, I think, in Boston is a very underrated signing as well. I think he's going to fit in very nicely in Boston, unfortunately for the both of us, as we're not the biggest.
They re-signed Reed Duke, their first ever draft pick.
Well, with that being said, we're getting into Reed Duke talk. So we're going to take our last commercial break on the show today. And we're going to quickly come back and discuss the free agents that are still available and what we expect from that. So stay right here on the Under Review Hockey Podcast and right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network.
J&L Flooring is a Niagara-based specialty flooring and design company. They take great pride in providing elite customer service and support. They are a specialty flooring and decor boutique shop with a beautiful showroom, great pricing, and a wide variety and truly unique selection of products. All their products are environmentally friendly and responsibly produced, so you can feel great about your flooring choices. Their goal as a local business is to build authentic relationships based on honesty and integrity that they foster with respect and authenticity, offering unique and wide range of quality products presented by a knowledgeable and patient team. They connect with their customers to simplify the process to make their life easier and to make their homes beautiful. Visit them at 4424 Montrose Road, Niagara Falls, or find out more at jnlflooring.com. Open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. through 5 p.m., and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. 905-358-3299 J&L Flooring. The Spicy Olive Bar and Grill is located on the top of Clifton Hill and just a 5-minute walk from the majestic Niagara Falls. It is conveniently nestled in the heart of the tourist district. A family-owned and operated business, the Spicy Olive opened its doors in May of 2003 and has since been established as an authentic and unique Italian restaurant and bar. Its rustic ambiance and time-worn finishing provide a warm and inviting dining experience. Offering an array of delicious dishes, they specialize in authentic Italian cuisine, homemade sauces, fresh ingredients, and consistently providing a strong foundation on which they build their menu. As night falls, the Spicy Olive shifts to a lively lounge where drinks and live music come together to make a perfect evening. For more than 15 years, they have provided not only for their dedicated locals, but their customers from all over the world with authentic Italian food and great live entertainment. Open daily 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. for dinner and till 2 a.m. for drinks. Check out their new menu and book reservations on their website at Spicy Olive Bar and Grill, it's with an E at the end, .com, or call 905-371-2323 for reservations as well. The Spicy Olive Bar and Grill.
You're listening to the Under Review Hockey Podcast, your Niagara source for all trending NHL topics, previews, analysis, in-depth discussions, and live coverage of events like the NHL Draft, Trade Deadline, and Free Agency. Here are your hosts, Brandon Caputo and Kyle Kitt.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the final segment of our Under Review Hockey Podcast right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Cappy and Kyle back with you here. And before we quickly discuss the free agents that are still available at the time of recording this episode, this segment is brought to you by the Niagara Employment Help Center, helping job seekers find work with their free services and counseling professionals. 6100 Thoroldstone Road, Niagara Falls, across from the Camisos Plaza. Book your appointment at 905-358-0021 or ehc.on.ca. Again, if you're looking for a job during these tough times, give them a call and they'll try to hook you up and get you there with an employer. So make sure you're checking them out in the Niagara Employment Help Center if you're looking for a job part-time during this pandemic. So with that being said, Kyle, let's take a look at the free agents still available in the NHL. Again, some are RFAs that we expect to maybe get qualifying offers or, maybe a low-end offer sheet. We don't know. Some are, older UFAs that just might be waiting a while, or others like Michael Grabner, who said that he's going to be waiting until he finds out what's going on with the NHL season before he signs a contract. So
you can be like Duclair and represent yourself.
And Duclair's representing himself. So let's quickly go through the list here, Kyle, and I'll just continue with the list, and you kind of stop me if you want to discuss any of them. So Corey Schneider, I mean, there was rumored that he had signed with the New York Islanders and reuniting with Grandpa Lou over there, Godfather Lou.
Great signing.
The two that obviously intrigue me are Michael Greenland and Mike Hoffman. I mean, those are obviously two of the main wingers left in free agency. Greenland, he played a little bit of center in Minnesota, more of a winger. Hoffman, we know what kind of winger he is, but he might be asking for a lot. He's already 30 years old, so maybe he's asking for too long of a contract where teams don't want to have a front-loaded or don't want to give him a lot on the back end, and potential buyouts with that we always see. But what do you think of Greenland and Hoffman still unsigned? Because those two guys are still, guys that can produce in your top six given playing with the right pieces.
I'm shocked that no one's I'm shocked that Hoffman's actually up there. Like, I honestly thought Hoffman would be gone by now, especially maybe though, because of what's going on, maybe he's asking for too much. Maybe he's asking for way more than what teams can afford right now. Maybe that's the thing. I don't know. I can't really go and be a fly on the room and know what he's asking teams, but it must be a lot if he's still a free agent. I'm finding it hard to believe that he can't find somewhere right now, and he's probably not even looking. Teams are probably offering him contracts, but he's probably getting the 1 year for $2 million or $3 million. We'll talk next year kind of deals. But
he was making 5.65 last year.
Hey, he's probably asking for 6, 7 for a couple of years. Probably looking for some stability finally, maybe a long-term contract. But I think Mike Hoffman's kind of got to swallow his pride and kind of just sign for a year and then take this, next year again. It's what a lot of players have done so far. You're not going to get a Pietrangelo long-term or a Torrey Krug or some other long contract that's been signed. You're going to get most likely 80% 1 year and that last 20%, some bridges between 2 to 3. I think he kind of just, or maybe he's not waiting. Maybe he hasn't had offers from the right team. Maybe he's waiting for the right team to maybe go and give him that long contract that he's getting. But it's interesting to see that he's still up there, because for a guy with that talent, he's a guy that makes your top 6 that much better.
And I mean, he's a guy that basically would have scored 30 goals if the season would have continued. He had 29 and 69 games last year. So for 59 points, the guy, he's a top producer on the power play as well when you put him with the right people. And we saw what he did in spurts in Florida and even his time in Ottawa before that. He's a proven goal scorer in this league. And, maybe the Taylor Hall signing kind of messed up with his plans. He was hoping Taylor Hall would sign for some massive 7-year contract and didn't get it. So Mike Hoffman kind of said, well, I guess I'm not getting my big 7-year contract. So like you said, maybe he will need to take a 1 or 2 year deal at maybe a little bit of higher money, but again, less term and less stability.
Ottawa hasn't made Ottawa's got the cap space. Either something happened between him and Melnyk, or
Erik Karlsson's not there anymore. So I mean, that was the whole issue, was him and Karlsson and their wives getting into it and things like that. But I mean, with Karlsson being gone,
you got Detroit, you got New Jersey, Ottawa. Your team, 13 mil. You guys still have 13 mil. It's hard to believe that you guys can't make a year offer to him, or even the Kings shockingly have 13 mil in cap space. But Detroit and Ottawa, how have they? Unless he doesn't want to go there, he probably wants to go. A guy like Hoffman, I'm assuming he probably wants to go to a playoff contending team. But right now, the bulk of the playoff contending teams don't have the cap space.
The team that I was interested in thinking that Hoffman would be a good landing spot would be Nashville. They missed out on Taylor Hall. They've obviously made some moves to free up some cap and want to improve their top 6. I would have actually liked to see Mike Hoffman in that spot with Nashville, but maybe there's some red flags that they don't like with him, kind of being like Craig Smith, who they just lost, a goal scorer, but really isn't reliable defensively in Mike Hoffman's case. But I could see Nashville making a run at Mike Hoffman if, the Preds become desperate enough for them not being able to acquire much of anything this offseason.
Yeah, I like that. I think Hoffman fits well in Nashville. I think they should gun for it. I mean, I'm looking at their cap situation, and Nashville is, where are they? Oh, right there. $12.9 million in cap space. They do have the sufficient room to even give him a 2 or 3 year bridge deal, and then we'll talk in the future. But even if it's just a 1 year one, give him a year at $5 million, give him a year at $6 million. It could be worth it for them. So unless, again, maybe they have, and maybe he doesn't want to play for Nashville. It's really weird to see Hoffman still a free agent right now. Greenland, I can understand, but Hoffman, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with that.
Yeah, and Nashville lost Greenland, so you think that they would want to replace some, and they lost Craig Smith, they lost Kyle Turris, they lost Nick Bonino, so trying to sign a guy or two, might be in their best interest to go after a guy like Mike Hoffman. We'll see. But somebody that jumped out at the page to me here was Alex Shenyak when we were discussing before the show. And obviously he has not panned out to anywhere close what either the Montreal Canadiens or the Arizona Coyotes had thought that he would be. Only 24 points in 59 games last year, split between Arizona and Minnesota. But do you think the team, he's only 26 years old, so there's still a chance for Alex Shenyak to kind of try to find his way somewhere, maybe start off in a bottom six and still have a productive NHL career somewhere.
Well, he's coming off a $4.9 million contract. So obviously, because of his production the last couple of years, his price is lack thereof. His production, I'm saying in terms of production, his asking price is going to be obviously lower than 4.9. I'd give him a 1 or 2 year contract anywhere between $2 and $3 million. That's something that's a low risk, high reward kind of thing for your bottom six, or even if you could fit him in to your top six, could benefit you. I think we've seen it a lot with players who change of scenery could benefit a player tremendously. So he's another player that I think maybe if he doesn't sign, he'll probably go over to the KHL. I can see that happening. If not, I can see him signing with a team for 1 year, 2, 3, high $4 million contract. The 4 is really pushing it, but I'm leaning more towards 2 or 3. And I think it could benefit a team. And if they have room in their bottom six, why not take a chance on Galchenyuk for a year? And if it doesn't work, hey, he's gone next year, or you can move him at the deadline.
So we'll have to see where he ends up going. Team might be able to get a low risk, high reward with Alex Galchenyuk there if he's able to turn around his, disappointing NHL career so far. Moving into some RFAs. And you mentioned Anthony Duclair. He's representing himself. That was interesting. Last one of note there. I think he might be able to find a spot somewhere. Maybe Nashville goes after a guy like him to slot in the second or third line. He had a great year with Ottawa last year, scoring a lot of goals. But RFAs that are intriguing: Sam Reinhart with Buffalo, Anthony Mantha with Detroit, Ryan Strome with the New York Rangers, Chris Tierney with Ottawa, and Ryan Pulak with the New York Islanders. Tyler Bertuzzi as well with Detroit. So what do you think about those RFAs? Obviously, they're not going to be getting, a major contracts here, but could you see maybe a team trying to go in and offer sheeting a guy like Mantha or Bertuzzi from Detroit, which they have a lot of cap space to be able to do stuff, but it just seems like they haven't found a common ground yet, or even with Ryan Strome and the Rangers, they have some cap situation struggles. So do you think a team might be able to willingly go in there and maybe put in a low offer sheet on one of these guys?
I think the offer sheets are better this year than they ever been, because obviously with the cap crunch in every team, it's not going to take a lot of salary to probably get an RFA. And then with a lower salary, the compensation also comes down with that lower salary. So I think it's smart for a team to try to make an RFA offer to one of these teams, depending on what the contract offer is and what the player wants. But if not, RFAs on a team like Detroit, I can't see another team coming in and swooping unless Detroit really just doesn't want them anymore. But a guy like Anthony Mantha, I can't see going anywhere else. Tyler Bertuzzi, probably, if their offer is right. If not, I can see Detroit re-signing him too. But a guy like Anthony Mantha, I don't think is going anywhere. I think he's a crucial part to their organization and their team. I think it's just they're kind of working out salaries right now. Obviously, sometimes it's not always the player, it's the agent. The agents could be asking for too much for their client. And, there's always that back and forth between the team and the agent. So Detroit, probably not. Other teams, hey, I could see it. I can definitely see another team coming in and swooping them up because, again, with the salary crunch, the salary for those RFAs are lower. Compensation comes down as well.
Yep, and those teams don't have, the internal caps, or they don't want to spend a lot of the money that maybe they would re-signing some of these RFAs. If somebody's offering them, a little bit more than what they want to pay, this year they might just say see you later. And like you mentioned, with the Seattle Kraken expansion draft coming as well, teams might be more willing to just let go of these players, and as opposed to trying to figure out who to keep on their roster going forward. So yeah. I think it's going to be interesting. It would be an interesting year to see some offer sheets because there might be ones that aren't matched by the current team. And, another team could take advantage of that and get a player for a lot cheaper than maybe they would have had to in previous years. So I think the RFA route could be interesting for some of these players finding new homes. But with that being said, I don't know if there's anyone else you want to mention on this list before we wrap up the show. Chara's still not signed, which is interesting. If he's going to go back to Boston or not. Other than that, there really isn't.
I'm shocked is not signed. He's one UFA that I'm shocked that no one's kind of made an attempt at. Kenzie Weegar I can see getting signed as an RFA back with Florida, or someone coming in and swooping. How about your goal? Are you guys? I mean, you guys are working out with Allmark. I'm assuming that he's going to be your goalie for until Ukko-Pekka Lehkonen is ready to go, but he's still an RFA.
I mean, I hope that he comes back unless they have another
Reinhart's
plan.
Still an RFA.
Unless they have a plan, and I don't expect Carter Hutton to be the full-time starter, so I really wouldn't like that idea. So I liked what Linus Ullmark did last year, so I would love to be able to get him back. And the Sabres, protected him in the last expansion draft by giving Vegas a draft pick to not take Linus Ullmark. So I think that they still find value in him, and he can still be a solid goalie for the Sabres for the next couple of years, and still until if and when Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen does develop. But I would obviously like the Sabres to get the deal done with him. But other than that, really nobody else that I would want to mention at this point. Chara, if he leaves Boston and doesn't retire, I don't really understand what the point of that is.
There's a lot of depth guys like Travis Hamonic, I think could play a good role on someone's team. I'd love for the Leafs to go after him. Right-handed defenseman, crucial. You got guys like Connor Sheary, Eric Howla, Colin Wilson, like bottom six depth guys that are
Athanasiou.
Yeah, like guys that could make a difference in your bottom six, or even if they, and there's a lot of guys on here that could transition into your top six if you need to. I mean, even Corey Perry, I think he's still got some gas in the tank. He's still a free agent right now.
Yeah, he had a great playoff with the Dallas Stars, so maybe they're trying to work something out. Yeah. But a lot of these guys just might have to wait until the NHL announces when their season's going to start.
Yeah,
and
Derek
what the
Brassard,
salary.
Madison Bowie. Like, I see a lot of decent names on this list.
Yeah, I think these guys are they're just casualties of the COVID era, and they're just gonna have to wait a while before they might have to go on PTOs, or when the season starts, maybe teams start to figure out, okay, we need to sign a few more guys, and a lot of these guys start to come off the list. Or like I mentioned, guys like Grabner who just aren't signing until they figure out what's going on with the league. So I think it's a little bit of a waiting game on both sides, but hopefully guys like Hoffman and Greenland are able to find a good home somewhere, because they're still very effective NHL players. But with that being said, I don't have anything else for the show today. Kyle, anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
No. Again, guys, we're now transitioning to video and audio podcasts. So if you're listening on the go, you want to watch us on video, if you feel like doing that, you can head over to our YouTube channel. Make sure you're hitting subscribe, the like button. Leave us your comments down below. Anything, if you guys want us to do something, or if you have any criticisms, we take criticisms well here. Just let us know. And that's it. That's all I got.
Again, it's a little bit of a longer episode, so thank you guys for staying with us. Again, we had a lot to cover with the free agent frenzy recap there, so that's going to wrap it up for this episode and installment of the Under Review Hockey Podcast on the Armchair GM Sports Network, your source North American sports coverage by sports fans for sports fans, delivered to you right here in the Niagara region. As always, I'm one of your hosts of the Under Review Hockey Podcast, Cappy. Follow me on Twitter at Caputs13 with a Canadian Z. As well, you can follow my co-host Kyle at JustKyle51 on Twitter, and check out his hopeful NHL 21 GM mode series. It's coming, so stay tuned for that. It's been a big hit. And a big thank you to all of our great sponsors who help put us on, support the network, keeping the show on the air. Make sure you're checking them out, telling them the Armchair GM sent you, using those promo codes and supporting your local businesses during this time. And lastly, to you viewers out there, for you tuning in and listening or watching along with us for this episode. And once again, this is the Under Review Hockey Podcast on the Armchair GM Sports Network by sports fans for sports fans. We'll see you guys next episode.